They entered the temple, deformed as it was with slime, and approached the altar where no fire burned. There they fell prostrate on the earth and prayed the goddess to inform them how they might retrieve their miserable affairs. The oracle answered, "Depart from the temple with head veiled and garments unbound, and cast behind you the bones of your mother." They heard the words with astonishment. Pyrrha first broke silence. "We cannot obey. We dare not profane the remains of our parents." They sought the thickest shades of the wood and revolved the oracle in their minds. At length Deucalion spoke. "Either my sagacity deceives me, or the command is one we may obey without impiety. The earth is the great parent of all. The stones are her bones. There we may cast behind us. And I think this is what the oracle means. The earth is the great parent of all. The stones are her bones. These we may cast behind us. And I think this is what the oracle means. At least it will do no harm to try." They veiled their faces, unbound their garments, and picked up stones and cast them behind them. The stones, wonderful to relate, began to grow soft and assume shape. By degrees they put on a rude resemblance to the human form, like a block half finished in the hands of the sculptor. The moisture and slime that were about them became flesh. The stony part became bones. The veins remained veins, retaining their name, only changing their use. Those thrown by the hand of the man became men, and those by the woman became women. It is a hard race, and well adapted to labor as we find ourselves to be at this day, giving plain indications of our origin. The comparison of Eve to Pandora is too obvious to escape. The comparison of Eve to Pandora is too obvious to have escaped Milton, who introduces it in Book 4 of Paradise Lost. "More lovely than Pandora, whom the gods, endowed with all their gifts and to like, in sad event, when to the unwise her son, of Japhet brought by Hermes, she ensnared mankind with her fair looks, to be avenged on him who had stole Jove's authentic fire." Prometheus and Epimetheus were sons of Iapetus, which Milton changes to Japhet. Prometheus has been a favorite subject with the poets. He is represented as a friend of mankind, who interposed in their behalf when Jove was incensed against them, and who taught them civilization and the art. But as, in doing so, he transgressed the will of Jupiter, he drew down on himself the anger of the ruler of the gods and men. Jupiter had him chained to a rock on Mount Caucasus, where a vulture preyed on his liver, which was renewed as fast as devoured. This state of torment might have been brought to an end at any time by Prometheus, if he had been willing to submit to his oppressor, for he possessed a secret which involved the stability of Jove's throne. And if he would have revealed it, he might have been at once taken into favor. But that he disdained to do. He has therefore become the symbol of magnanimous endurance, of unmerited suffering, and strength of will resisting oppression. Byron and Shelley have both treated this theme. The following are Byron's lines. "Titan, to whose immortal eyes the sufferings of mortality, seen in their sad reality, were not as things that gods despise, what was thy pity's recompense? A silent suffering and intense, the rock, the vulture, and the chain, all that the proud can feel of pain, the agony they do not show, the suffocating sense of woe. Thy godlike crime was to be kind, to render with thy precepts less the sum of human wretchedness, and strengthen man with his own mind. And, baffled as thou wert from high, still in thy patient energy, in the endurance and repulse of thine impenetrable spirit, which earth and heaven could not convulse, a mighty lesson we inherit. Byron also employs the same allusion in his ode to Napoleon Bonaparte. Or, like the chief of fire from heaven, wilt thou withstand the shock and share with him the unforgiven, his vulture and his rock? The slime with which the earth was covered by the waters of the flood produced an excessive fertility, which called forth every variety of production, both bad and good. Among the rest, Python, an enormous serpent, crept forth, a terror of the people, and lurked in the caves of Mount Parnassus. Apollo slew him with his arrows, weapons which he had not before used against any but feeble animals, hares, wild goats, and such game. In commemoration of this illustrious conquest, he instituted the Pythian Games, in which the victor in feats of strength, swiftness of foot, or in the chariot race was crowned with a wreath of beech leaves, for the laurel was not yet adopted by Apollo as his own tree. The famous statue of Apollo, called the Belvedere, represents the god after the victory over the serpent Python. To this Byron alludes in his Childe Harold. The lord of the unerring bow, the god of life and poetry and light, the sun in human limbs arrayed and brow, all radiant from his triumph in the fight. The shaft has just been shot, the arrow bright, with an immortal's vengeance in his eye, and nostril beautiful disdain and might, and majesty flashed her full lightnings by, developing in that one glance the deity. Daphne was Apollo's first love. It was not brought about by accident, but by the malice of Cupid. Apollo saw the boy playing with his bow and arrows, and being himself elated with his recent victory over Python, he said to him, What have you to do with warlike weapons, saucy boy? Leave them for hands worthy of them. Behold the conquest I have won by means of them over the vast serpent, who stretched his poisonous body over acres of the plain. Be content with your torch, child, and kindle up your flames, as you call them, where you will, but presume not to meddle with my weapons. Venus's boy heard these words and rejoined, Your arrows may strike all things else, Apollo, but mine shall strike you. So saying, he took his stand on a rock of Parnassus and drew with his quiver 2 arrows of different workmanship, one to excite love, the other to repel it. The former was of gold and sharp-pointed, the latter blunt and tipped with lead. With the leaden shaft he struck the nymph Daphne, the daughter of the river god Peneus, and with the golden one Apollo, through the heart. Forthwith the god was seized with love for the maiden, and she abhorred the thought of loving him. Her delight was in the woodland sports and in the spoils of the chase. Many lovers sought her, but she spurned them all, ranging the woods and taking no thought of Cupid nor of Hymen. Her father often said to her, Daughter, you owe me a son-in-law, you owe me grandchildren. She, hating the thought of marriage as a crime, with her beautiful face tinged all over with blushes, threw her arms around her father's neck and said, Dearest father, grant me this favor, that I may always remain unmarried, like Diana. He consented, but at the same time said, Your own face will forbid it. Apollo loved her, and longed to obtain her. And he who gives oracles to all the world was not wise enough to look into his own fortunes. He saw her hair flung loose over her shoulders and said, If so charming in disorder, what would be if arranged? He saw her eyes bright as stars, he saw her lips, and was not satisfied with only seeing them. He admired her hands and arms, naked to the shoulder, and whatever was hidden from view he imagined more beautiful still. He followed her. She fled swifter than the wind, and delayed not a moment at his entreaty. "Stay," said he, "daughter of Peneus. I am not a foe. Do not fly me as a lamb flies the wolf, or a dove the hawk. It is for love I pursue you. You make me miserable. For fear you should fall and hurt yourself on these stones, and I should be the cause. Pray run slower, and I will follow slower. I am no clown, no rude peasant. Jupiter is my father, and I am lord of Delphos and Tenedos, and know all things present and future. I am the god of song and the lyre. My arrows fly true to the mark, but alas, an arrow more fatal than mine has pierced my heart. I am the god of medicine, and know the virtues of all healing plants. Alas, I suffer a malady that no balm can cure." The nymph continued her flight and left his plea half uttered, and even as she fled she charmed him. The wind blew her garments, and her unbound hair streamed loose behind her. The god grew impatient to find his wooings thrown away, and, sped by Cupid, gained upon her in the race. It was like a hound pursuing a hare with open jaws, ready to seize, while the feebler animal darts forward, slipping from the very grasp. So flew the god and the virgin, he on the wings of love, and she on those of fear.